Miriam Pearl, the owner and recipe developer of Delicious Without Gluten, joins me here on the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're doing something a little different with you today because normally, you know, Miriam comes on the show and she shows us how to bake gluten-free and how to use these great alternatives and so forth. But we wanted to talk about your journey today and how you got to this point because you were once a designer and then you became a baker. What happened?
So first of all, today is Celiac Awareness Day. And this has been Celiac Awareness Month as well as Allergy Awareness Month.
Right.
And my life has taken a huge turn because after all said and done, I have two kids who I found out have both allergies and celiac.
So both peanut allergy and celiac?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, one of them has a peanut allergy.
Okay, but both of them have
celiac
with
disease.
Celiac disease.
Yes,
I see.
And I didn't know that before when I was a designer, and I didn't know that before I love to cook and I love to bake. Mostly I like to bake.
Right.
But I wasn't a baker, so I actually started with my daughter who was peanut allergy at 2.
Okay.
And I decided to.
There's your kids right there. Brought them up. How old are they now?
Now they're 19 and 21.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the beginning back there.
This is 15 years ago.
Right.
They were helping me to come up with recipes. That's when I first opened up my gluten-free factory, which I have today, called Delicious Without Gluten. And I got there because of them.
Right.
I started a peanut-free bakery after finding out about Alicia.
Okay.
And then I opened up Delicious Without Gluten because both my kids had celiac disease, and I had no idea how I was going to be working in a gluten bakery when I can't, feed my own kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So what were their symptoms in the beginning?
So we found out from Jake, really, because Jake was like super tired all the time. He was tired. Now I thought he was a lazy kid. So,
I bet you a lot of parents but a lot of parents probably went through the same thing, right?
I know. And he did have like stomach aches, but there was one day in particular that his stomach ache was so bad, but he didn't have a gastro or anything that you would be able to name.
Okay.
But other than that, he was just tired, and I sent him, made an appointment with both the doctor and a naturopath, one day apart.
Okay.
And they took blood tests, and the following Monday, we received news that Jake has celiac disease. Now, how do they know? Through the blood test, the first process is having a TTG level diagnosis. So you have normal TTG levels, maybe between 3 and 10, and ours was like in the hundreds. Okay. So this is a hereditary disease.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
I wasn't. Yeah. And by the way, we're showing some of the information that you sent along with us as you.
Yes, this is celiac. I sort of wrote some notes about like what celiac disease is because through the process of finding out with my kids, I obviously had to figure this out with the doctors.
Right.
And what I was trying to explain a little bit is that my kids, when Jake was diagnosed, and we found out that the rest of the family had to get also tested.
Oh yeah, of course.
And so you should not get off of the gluten before you get tested, which is very important.
Okay.
And then once you do, then you're allowed to, follow the celiac diet because, of course, the only remedy and diagnose you have symptoms. Sorry, we keep changing that.
We're going all over the place.
So Jake was tired.
It matches our personalities, so don't worry.
Jake was diagnosed because he was very tired, and the reason is because in the small intestine, celiac disease is when you have the lining of the small intestine has these little villi, and those villi are what absorbs all the nutrients. And when you don't absorb those nutrients, then of course you don't have any of the nutrients, which, for example, he would be more anemic because he didn't have the iron, right? So that's what made him tired.
Gotcha.
A lot of young kids don't grow properly because they don't have those nutrients. And also there's different things that might happen where my daughter was diagnosed because the whole family had to get diagnosed.
Okay.
So had to get tested.
So she didn't necessarily have symptoms. You just knew because it can be hereditary.
Exactly.
She had to get tested and with the rest of the family.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what happened, and we thought that for sure it was going to be negative because she didn't have the same symptoms. But later we found out that she was diagnosed with celiac disease, and she had these little white spots on her teeth.
Really?
And she also had eczema. And both of those are from that. Now just think for a second, if you're not absorbing the calcium, then of course that's what happens.
Right.
You have deficiencies, and that shows in your teeth. So we told our family, and they wanted to know whether, which part of the family actually had this.
Right.
And both myself and their father did not have it.
Really?
So we went and got gene tested.
Okay.
And then found out that it was from their father's family, which then his
And you were like,
sister,
phew.
well, not just few, but
I'm just kidding.
So bad news sometimes is good news, right?
Right,
Because
yeah.
now his sister has 2 kids, one that was shorter, one that was taller. Guess which one had celiac disease?
Shorter.
Absolutely. And he had no symptoms. And so it's kind of good to kind of know that.
Okay, so if you don't have symptoms, is there then the danger that down the road you'll start getting, the stomach ache symptoms or some of the other?
So I would say that some people say that it's very good if you don't have symptoms because of course you don't feel bad.
Right.
But then you don't know and you can't fix it. And what happens if you don't fix an autoimmune disease, sorry.
Yeah.
And so what can happen is you can get osteoporosis, you can get, because of the malnutrition, right?
Right.
And you can get infertility. There's a whole series of different things that can get affected. Sometimes it's with learning in school. You have you have bad headaches.
Right.
So yes, eventually something will show up.
Okay.
I have friends that have only been diagnosed like in their 50s. So you see, it's very highly undiagnosed. I would say half of the people who have celiac disease actually don't have gastro issues.
Oh,
which is surprising, right?
Yeah, because I thought that was like the main issue, right? So it's very individual then for each person.
And it's highly undiagnosed. But now with the TTG test, it's just a blood test.
Right.
And then after that, you have to get an endoscopy to ensure that the villi that are mushed, that how it looks, they take a little specimen of the tissue, and then they can actually tell you whether or not it's really celiac disease or not.
Okay. All this being said, my friends, Miriam is going to stick around because now we want to talk about what you can eat, what you can't eat, and of course, it's thanks to people like you, right, that have found all these alternatives, because that was the big worry for a lot of people. They're like, but I can't eat my favorite foods anymore. This is going to ruin my life. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the do's and don'ts, what you can and can't. Miriam Pearl from Delicious Without Gluten back with us right after the break. Don't go anywhere. Second segment. Now we're going to talk about what you can eat and what you can't eat, because I imagine when this first began, as I said, it was thanks to people like you that finally started finding these alternatives, but it must have been really difficult in the beginning for you and your family, right?
It was. Actually, 15 years ago there was not a lot in the market.
Yeah.
So it was pretty, dry, and it wasn't a very fun experience.
Yeah, it was like flour was now sand.
Yeah,
right.
But also my kids were 5 and 6.
Yeah.
They wanted to go to parties, and
Of
they wanted to be
course.
included, and they weren't included so much until finally I figured out how to make these amazing cupcakes and amazing bread, and eventually they started to, be able to partake in everything, and even I would make their cakes and their friends' cakes and things like that. So that's how all this kind of started.
Amazing.
However, one of the things that you should know is that, first of all, we're super lucky that it's just food, right?
Right.
I mean, we don't have medication.
Yes.
And so that could be a lot worse, right?
Right.
I know that a lot of people who have celiac disease struggle a lot. When your kids are young, it's like super ideal because you have control over what they eat.
Makes sense,
You can
yeah.
only imagine what a teenager would do when they go out to eat with friends and
Yes.
try to be social. It's not so easy when you don't know. And
Right.
for this reason, I actually used to go to the shopping with my kids, and I did like take a label and tell me if it's gluten-free or not, and I teach them
Smart.
how to cook.
So what do you
and we
look
made it all
for?
fun.
Speaking of labels, like what do I look for on a label if I'm
So,
worried about it?
A lot of things will have a gluten-free indication, but there's definitely some issues with certain foods, so I'm going to go over that.
Okay.
First of all, what's really easy to remember is that we always have fruits, vegetables, dairy like milk, yogurt. You have salmon, or fish and chicken and meat. You have anything to do with potato, rice. You
That's
have rice
everything we've
noodles.
got here.
Everything that's great is
Okay.
here. Quinoa. All these grains are good. You're looking for no wheat, no barley, and no rye.
Okay.
Okay. Some people can't tolerate oats, but that's nothing to do with the actual oat itself. It's because the way that it's grown next to fields that have wheat, and the wind blows and cross-contaminates.
Cross-contamination happens.
But
yeah.
you can find oats that have been tested. And if
Oh,
they're
really?
tested, then they say gluten-free on it, and that's
Okay.
what the law says. And since then, the labeling here in Canada has been amazing. So I used to have to call, in the back of every package, there's a 1-800 number. So I'd be shopping with my 1-800 number and asking
You're kidding? Really?
Absolutely.
You'd be in the grocery store. Hi, I'm here with your product.
I do that sometimes still.
Still, eh?
So
That's
you can-
amazing.
You can put that down. It's good.
No,
So
that's fine.
I was just saying that when you call up the number, usually you ask if there's any gluten in there, and they look at this allergen sheet that they have, and they write and they tell you if it's in the product in the same line or if it's in the factory, and they'll tell you that because everyone
They
has.
must answer rather quickly because
They
I'm
do.
thinking you're at the grocery store. You're like, please hold. Press 1 for gluten and celiac. Press 2 for you're like, I'm gonna go through the whole menu here. Well, that's good to know.
Yes.
I mean, they're very responsive.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. So some of the things that you'll note is, first of all, I didn't have any beer, but yes, beer
Yes.
has to be gluten-free because
Yeah.
it's obviously.
Yeah. This is one
This
that
is-
a lot of people don't realize, right?
I know.
Soy sauce.
Yeah. So soy sauce is in pretty much a lot of things, but there is a lot of gluten-free soy sauce available.
Okay.
Okay. Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire. Exactly.
Say that 5 times fast, friends.
Deli meats or hot dogs, sometimes they have fillers to make things
Oh,
cheaper.
yeah.
And even pepper, when you think about it, pepper is very expensive, and they've put in wheat inside pepper
What?
packets. Yes, yes. That's
What are you
one of the
people
first
doing
things
to
I
us?
learned. Yes. So spices are not so great. There are buckwheat noodles on the market, and you don't realize if you don't look at the back, it says wheat in there.
Right,
So we
okay.
might confuse that. And a lot of sauces and consommes and things like that have gluten in it. And I have lentils here. So it was just to remind me that lentils, actually, there was a study done where they found bits of wheat and barley
Oh, okay,
inside.
okay.
And so you have to actually check to make sure, because this one actually says it contains wheat. It may
Why are you
contain
putting?
wheat.
Okay,
May contain wheat.
that's a cross-contamination issue more than
so
anything.
they
Okay.
actually don't test. They can't write gluten-free.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's
okay.
that's by law.
Let's move on to what we can eat, right?
So
I'm guessing
the can is this, but
Oh, yeah,
what
sorry.
you can't really eat, obviously, with the wheat is all the bakery goods.
Right, that's where you
so
come
that's
in.
where I come in.
Yeah.
So we have like breads and things. Everything is now available on the market.
Okay.
You have tons and tons of gluten-free bakeries, mine included, and you have regular cakes and cookies, and everything already tastes very good, and it's not like when I started. So
Well, and I can, you know what? I can attest to that from experience. No, I'm serious, because some people, there was always the joke, right? That, you know, if it was gluten-free, it wasn't going to taste great. You have made so many amazing
Thank you.
baked goods on this show, and then even, you know, in Montreal when we were, you and I were together at Breakfast Television. Everything I ate from you tasted fantastic.
Thank you.
But I want people to know it's not just you. There's a lot of fantastic products out there now.
But I brought this because I really wanted to tell you that when you have one child or one adult inside a family that is celiac and the whole family is not gluten-free,
Yeah.
you have to have a separate toaster, a separate cutting area and cutting board, because you
Okay.
see how there's like cracks inside.
Yeah.
And then when you have like tubs, let's say you have jam or margarine or butter or whatever.
The same knife and
Yeah. So we usually indicate with a color or something, color code it, or we put a name on it. And then we actually try to get as many squeezy bottles as possible.
Smart.
And then when you're going out or in, you have to use separate oil for frying. And
of course,
you should
yeah.
have a separate strainer, because the pasta sticks inside the strainer, especially when it's very
I tried
thin.
to wash it so often. I understand what you're saying. It's such a pain in the butt.
And we also have separate sponges. Imagine you're washing your gluten, and then you're washing with the same sponge your gluten-free.
Yes, because things like this in particular, even washcloths, right? They're going to get stuck in the fibers.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter, and you might think you've rinsed it completely.
Exactly.
But there still might be something.
But we color code them. Like I have one for this and one for that.
Idea.
So that's a really good idea.
I can't say enough what an eye opener it is. No, to walk through some of these things and people would have no idea that there's gluten.
Some people don't know, and some people get very nervous. And
Yeah.
I've been through the process, and I'm always asked questions, and I love it because
Deliciouswithout.com. You want to find out more information, and of course to find out about the wonderful products Miriam makes. We'll be back with more right after this. Don't go anywhere.